So you're obviously like you are a big music guy, would you say? Like you're pretty into making music, listening to music.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I spent like almost from my early childhood even music has been like a huge part of my life. So I always I guess like kind of wandered towards it. I didn't I guess intentionally go towards it, but yeah, it's a huge part of my life through all of my time in grade school at least, as
Mhm.
well as into college for a bit. But my dad was huge. He was a big musician, had his own band before I was born and everything, and then he tried working on being a solo musician. He wanted to um, basically play all his own instruments, do his own thing before, like big mixing equipment was around. So he was actually like going through recording himself, trying to like do all this stuff before, technology kind of outran him in some sense too. Um, but that was a huge influence on everything, just like the basically towards the trajectory where I was going, anyways. Because once I got to high school, I started doing, and it's kind of funny to compare to where I am now. But going into high school, I was following. I wanted to be an actor, wanted
Mhm.
to jump in, and so I wanted to like get all the aspects of it. So I ended up like joining chorus and everything, but ended up getting involved in a cappella and like doing all these other things. And then on the side I learned how to beatbox. I learned how to basically do all these like crazy side things. I can this thing, it's like this vocal fry thing that I spent years like trying to learn, um where it's like this like throat bass type thing, and you can do all sorts of things, kind of like a
Mhm.
um one of those didgeridoos. There we
I was
go.
gonna say I
It's
haven't
kind
heard of that, but as soon as
of
you said throat thing, I instantly thought
yeah.
of like a didgeridoo.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So like basically from there, like making different sounds with my voice and using that in a cappella as I, went through middle school, into high school and everything. And I was in a group at Danvers High School in Massachusetts, and we had it was 2015, and we had gone into Pitch Perfect, the movie there, the competition that they do.
Oh, great, great. I'm loving this.
Yeah, basically like that's the college version, in a sense of the competition that my high school group did.
Gotcha.
And it's called the ICHSA, or the International Championship of High School Acapella. Um, and then there's the ICCA, which is International Collegiate Championship of Acapella.
Mhm.
So a lot of different places, but the ICCA has even groups from like the UK and everything too, and it's all from all over the United States and everything. And my group ended up placing third place at finals during the
Not bad.
ICCHSA in 2015, and it was phenomenal. It was one of the coolest things that had ever happened. But basically, from there, we had, I had become a point bass, and basically, I was the only bass in the group
Mhm.
who held a mic. So I ended up, holding an entire section on my own and everything. And I had never really, you know, delved too deep into, the solo atmosphere. Like I've always kind of been in the background. Like I always had like
Right.
a background kind of aspect of like playing a huge, like heavy supportive figure.
Mhm.
Um, and even in like acting, and then getting involved with something else like, you know, um, video work, and audio work and stuff involving that too, just working with different sounds and then involving beatboxing. And then now, in that trajectory, trying to kind of almost flip it and do something entirely different.
Mhm.
Whereas now I am out of school, I'm out of everything. I'm no longer in a group that's doing like anything big musically, and I'm kind of on my own. And since I've been like a very vocal sort of, I guess, focused person,
Hmm.
now I'm kind of thinking like, so how do I, where do I go from here? Because how
Yeah.
do I do something on that's not a supportive role?
Yeah.
So now, so then jumping into something like rap, which is completely almost like a 180 to what I'm like used to. I'm a theater kid, a cappella, you know, it's like almost like the total opposite spectrum, it seems, on the music, you know, seeing at least in style and how it's perceived and how the, I guess, like the atmosphere and the feels and vibes of it. I mean, like just rap, not like
Hmm.
too much into like R&B or something like that. But
Yeah.
you know, you got crossover here and there. But
Yeah.
that's kind of where, you know, that's the whole gigantic, massive circle of everything where it comes back.
Would you say that
Um,
there was a
yeah.
specific like turning point or instance that you met where you kind of had that realization of going more like in that solo route, like you said? Because, being with all those groups, you said is hard to make that transition to being, a solo whatever, artist, writer, insert your variable. Was there anything
That's
specific that
true.
kind of like made you, say, I do want to go in this direction?
I don't know if there was anything specific, but I think one of the biggest things was basically not being in college anymore, I think, and being in a place in an environment where, you know, you have a lot of people around you and it's very like the atmosphere is very like social learning, and you can kind of adapt, and you know, you can choose what you want out of college. You know, you can go for it for entirely the social aspect, or you can go for it for, you know, that learning aspect, or you can take in the both. And I think for something like music, you have to take in the both.
Hmm.
And it's like you have that ability to kind of, you know, blend in with other people, and even through high school and everything. But then you're suddenly like, I'm suddenly at a point where that just like kind of disappeared, you know. And you know, I work with people and I work in a community and everything like that, but you know, it's a very different like field than a bunch of, you know, theater and acapella like people the same age as me or something, or even in like a grade school or something. You know, we're talking all
Hmm.
people's a different life and different things, so it's like you're kind
Is
of
it,
forced into a world where you're on your own.
yeah, is it more like independent, you would say?
Definitely, for sure. Yeah, it's like it's a very independent feeling where it's like all of a sudden this, you know, this spot that used to be filled with all this like this creative environment and this creative, you know, place to be able to create and develop things with others and kind of bounce ideas off each other. It's like, you know, it's a ramped up, you know, there's energy going between you guys. Like there's,
Hmm.
you know, you guys are, everybody like is kind of in the same headspace and is kind of working towards the same goal and just as motivated as the person next to them. So it just causes like this domino effect of good energy and positive
Hmm.
vibes towards creating something good. And you know, that's really, really like, that's just, you know, that you can get a lot done doing that, and you can make a lot of progress as a group and as like, you know, in your sound and your skill and your ability to perform, and
Right.
how you know, perform your day-to-day songs, and like how you can make that extra leap forward to be that much better, you know.
Yeah.
So but when you're stuck and you're on your own, it's kind of, I don't know, it seems it's very different. So it's been a big challenging moment for me. And I kind of had like, because I was, when I was in college, I wasn't studying music either. I was
Right.
studying, um I was doing film studies and production with a minor in photography.
Hmm.
And as much as I love photography and film work and everything, it definitely was something that I've been struggling to keep on even as a habit. Maybe even for the same reasons as I'm talking about for music right now. But
Hmm.
I would say, I think like not having a creative outlet anymore that I, you know, was really drawn towards, I think wanted me to try something completely different and out of my, you know, my own comfort zone.
Mm.
So like jumping on to, you know, something like rap, which is completely on the opposite spectrum for myself. That was like it was like very uncomfortable idea to do.
Right, yeah.
Because it always felt that way, but I kind of just like was like, huh, like that's really uncomfortable idea, like maybe I should do it, and that's always just kind of where I've been at. But it's been a very like slow journey, and very, very slow, I guess. Like, I have a lot of setbacks, and I grow back again and make
Hmm.
more progress, and then something gets in the way, like a writer's block or something, and I
Yeah.
stop for a long period of time, and it happens, but it's a lot more than I'm used to, because you don't have someone to bounce off of you and like give you that support of, like, because if one person gets writer's block, there's in my group, like Falcon Eyes in 2015, that was, we had, I think it was 16 people or 17 people. So and we had a music director as well. And and even with the smallest group at Danvers High School that I was in, with 6 people, it was still 5 other people and a music director, to bounce ideas off of if I
Hmm.
wasn't in the right place. But you don't have that anymore, so it's like you're constantly like relying on your own motivation to keep you going and keep that
Yeah.
momentum up.
Yeah, where do you
you
kind
know
of try to get some of those ideas from if you're not with, or if you're not bouncing off of other people?
so a lot of the time, like, I actually, so I bought an Apple Watch with the kind of like the intention of this, but I didn't know how well it was going to go. But honestly, having a recording device that I can easily transmit between my phone and my wrist,
Hmm.
just like easily. Basically, I have I work 50 hours a week, so I got to find time where I can, jump in and do like a little practice where I'm not like doing, normal day-to-day things. So like on my lunch breaks or something, like, I might play a beat in my car, and then I can play it through my phone, but I can, record myself on something, trying out some sort of piece that I wrote, doing a little mock-up, spitting it out, or maybe I'll try to throw in a little melody in there or something and try to sing something. And I'll do this over and over, and I'll listen back on those, and I'll kind of, critique myself over time, and like slowly develop a style. And then
Hmm.
when I'm ready, I have something fully written out, or I've changed things. I sort of like start to realize, pinpoint places where, I can improve in spots where things aren't working as well. And it's like I'm starting to be able to, without, feeling too, or being too critical, I guess, of myself, trying to be as constructive as possible, so that way you can be as, I guess, you can make the most progress in that, that span of time without getting too
Hmm.
frustrated and killing the momentum.
Would you say that
So,
you get stuck in your head a lot? Like, do you overthink it?
oh, definitely, like all the time.
Yeah.
All the freaking time.
I think that's
Yeah,
important
it's
when you are
terrible.
creating something that you're so passionate about and that you enjoy. Like, you're going to critique it no matter what.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I feel like you have to critique it, but you have to know like when it's like what you're critiquing and what that means, like, because there's so many places that you can get just completely trapped in your head and just lost in the moment, and focused on one thing until you just beat it. And it's just like the simple phrase of beating a dead horse, like,
Hmm.
if you beat something so many times, and it's just going to sound so overproduced and so overdone, and you're going to hate it, and then you're going to have no more energy to really dive back into it, and then it's
Hmm.
just like all this negative associations with it, and it's like you hide that project away forever. But to play devil's advocate, I will say sometimes that's not always the worst thing in the long term. I will say, when going back to it, like, I recently found several recordings that I had done on my mic before I had moved into my current place, and saved in my Dropbox somewhere, that I completely forgot I recorded. And I remembered that I hated them, absolutely despised them. And
Hmm.
like I hadn't touched them in forever for that exact reason. But I remember listening back, and that's when, I was able to really pull out the good stuff and really look at it and give it some really good and constructive criticism, because I almost liked it 10 times better and didn't understand why I hated it before.
Mm. Yeah.
So it happens. So like getting in your head can be really dangerous, and sometimes you got to like put it down, put it away for a second, or like, just like stop yourself from beating that horse.
Yeah, and like take a break from it
Yeah.
and revisit it. And on the contrary of that too, music can also be like super therapeutic. And that's something I'm curious to hear your thoughts on too. Like how has music kind of helped you with like things like, mental illness, emotional like anxiety, things like that. Like that's probably been a huge
Oh
factor
yeah,
for you as well.
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, music in general, just like, I mean, over time, like I really developed my taste, I think. I i almost started out only strictly listening to, I think, country and rock, between my mom and my stepdad listening to country, and my dad listening to strictly classic rock. And when I was younger, like I had lived on the weekend, on the weekdays, with my mom and my stepdad and
Mm.
my siblings. I went to school. I did my extracurriculars, like sometimes till, upwards of between 6 and 9 o'clock at night. I'd be at school, and then on the weekends I'd go to New Hampshire to my dad's. So like I was always back and forth. I basically had no exposure to hip hop for almost in, almost until I had exited middle school, which is
Honestly,
crazy.
same. Honestly, same. I'm there with
Really,
you.
really.
Like, it's
Wow.
funny
Okay.
like how
Cool.
much our parents can like influence that because my parents too. I remember one time I think I was
Yeah.
listening to hip hop and my mom goes, this isn't the type of music that your father and I call music. And I was like, well, that's subjective. Like, so I don't know what you're talking about, mom,
Oh,
but like,
okay.
yeah, sure, okay. But yeah, like I totally get that.
Okay, I feel that. Okay, I don't know many people that also have had that, so that's crazy. But yeah, same thing. Like a lot of people, I feel like, had, or at least like in my town, there was a lot of people, or in the primary town that I grew up in, there's a lot of people that had not listened to as much of like the rock and country atmosphere, and then getting involved in that later on, and then, but like not really even on like a huge level. I remember hearing it from friends and stuff, and wanting to like know what they were kind of talking about and get in the conversation.
Hmm.
So you get involved, and I remember not even liking hip hop and rap too much. I actually remember hating rap for like the longest time,
Right.
and like ranting about how I didn't like it and everything for no reason, but I had no idea what rap was, or is. But basically, I so from there going into a cappella and theater, I think, like from getting all those things involved in my life, it became a very like, it became like a rock. It was something that I could always go back to, and
Hmm.
like music kind of intertwined into all of the interests that I had had been going on, between, between like acting, between my music work in general with chorus and things, and a cappella, as well as my video work, and
Hmm.
even sometimes photography in some sense. And music always intertwines. So then in your personal life and anything, music
Hmm.
intertwines with everything. And it's just, I always keep coming back to it. It's something that always sort of rings true to me. So when I need something to kind of root me, I can always go back
Mm.
to music in a sense.
Yeah.
And whether that, and it's just kind of, you have to go with the flow, though. I feel like, if we're constantly growing, and we're constantly expanding our knowledge and experiencing new things, so we have to constantly be growing our experiences with music as well. Like it's always appropriate to go back and listen to your same tracks over and over that you love and stuff, but I feel like, the more that you explore and get involved and different things. It just like opens up your vocabulary like
Yeah,
so much more, you know?
I agree 100%. Is there a specific instance that you can remember where music was just such a lifeline for you, like helped you through something difficult?
I I can't remember anything hugely specific, but I know like in many scenarios where, I need there's many times where, I'm probably trying to figure out something difficult in my head, like just driving, you're just like doing whatever. It's coming back from work, you had a tough day or something, and you're like trying to figure out how the hell you're feeling about a situation.
Hmm.
And then, you're listening to the radio or listening to one of your playlists or a song that you hear all the time. And like, then you just hear something in the lyrics or something in the chord in the song, like anything, and it just like hits you differently in that moment.
Hmm.
And those moments are like, I feel like the most distinctive, like key moments for me that like I live for, like when it comes to music. Because if like, because that's what it's almost like, you found the definition of the song, like to you, you found where it hit you, like where it hits your deepest core, maybe at that moment,
Hmm.
depending on the song or just in general.
I was gonna say, and it could hit you at different moments in your life. Like you might listen to a song
Exactly.
when you're in one situation and then revisit it when you're in a different situation, and it has a completely different meaning to you.
Right, exactly. Like as you like, I'm sure we all have songs out there that we listened to when we were younger, and the we didn't quite understand the lyrics, but what we thought we understood about the lyrics, we created our own definitions and meanings to ourselves. But we listen back now, having a bit more life experience in general,
Hmm.
and like you understand the song better, or it has a different meaning to you. And whether it's like you respond with like disgust, like what where the hell did I like this song,
Right.
or it's like, oh wow, like this thing is even like twice as deep as I even thought it was, and it's like that much heavier of a reaction. Like those are the coolest moments.
Yeah, it's like what you said, reliving something but in a different way. And I could always think of like I always think back to when I first really got into music, and for me it was like middle school. And
Yeah.
the way I originally got into music, well, even before that, this is gonna get real personal. I was a Kids
All right.
Bop kid, not gonna lie, I admit it. I had Kids Bop
Hell yeah.
CDs. Like I think anyone that was like a late 90s, early 2000s kid, you know, Kids Bop was there for me when I
Awesome
needed
though.
them to be. And like middle school, I remember having this like fake radio thing that looked like an iPod, and I used to listen to it on the bus. And then that's when I like
Mhm.
would start going on iTunes, and I would just document like so many hours like on iTunes, just looking people up, listening to stuff, like diving deep into like the descriptions, and then everything just kind of took off from there with like what it is today with music, with all like streaming platforms, to the point where it's like I'll go on Spotify for hours, I'll watch like artist interviews, I'll read like reviews, like I just do everything I can to like consume it. Like Wikipedia is my best friend when it comes to like looking up facts about music. Like do you like you get that,
Right.
right? Like you're just always
No,
wanting
no,
to
I
like
feel you.
consume something and like understand like even an artist's backstory behind a song or like anything.
Right. No, I totally feel that. I totally feel that. And that's like, I feel like that's the best approach, because it's, we're in a world that's constantly moving now, with as technologies, progressing as fast as it is. Our parents didn't have the stuff that we have and couldn't communicate the way we are right now. So like you got to imagine things are going to speed up, especially in the entertainment business too. So it's like, if you really want to get your voice out there and actually do something with music too, you know as long as that's what you want to do,
Hmm.
it's one of those things. As long as you're consuming and consuming, and always expanding your knowledge, never settling for just one set of beliefs on anything, or set of skills on any sense. Like I feel like if you're always adapting and learning and changing, like you'll never be behind, and you'll never notice that you're behind either, you know? Like that's the thing, and you'll just keep that momentum going as long as you're learning, you know? That's been the biggest. I To go back to even another question too, to kind of answer it a little bit better, you know,
Yeah.
that's the thing, like knowledge, like if you can learn something new and expand what you already know, you know, and change your perspective on something, and especially in music, like that's the biggest piece of momentum I feel like anyone can have, because and you can do that at any time, and it's just constantly consuming and just
Hmm.
filling your head with more and more knowledge. And like, you know, I barely knew before I learned about, you know, the backstory of a lot of people, like specifically, you know, the two most famous, which have a backstory that I did not believe could have ever really existed, of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls.
Hmm.
So, you know, they have such a huge backstory that, you know, even being such large individuals themselves in the, or being so famous at everything in general, they, if you weren't paying attention the whole entire time, you wouldn't have known like half of these things. You know, you really
Hmm.
have to kind of like look for a second. I at least had no idea until I actually took a second to look. And you think about how many different artists out there that are doing the same thing, and you know, have their whole entire backgrounds and what they had to do to get to the place that they are, and like where we are now and stuff, and you know, the things that they did to get to where we are. So, you know, the work that you got to put in, like just consuming and constantly working towards that goal, getting your head in the right place, you
Hmm.
know, I feel like that's where it is, because that's where the passion lies. Because if that passion dies,
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, let me ask you, what is a goal that you have with the music that you make and put out?
I think my goal is to do something and create something that's honest and personal to me, and in a way that I can be happy showing it and sharing it with other people, and as well as, you know, listening to it on my own for myself, or you know, whatever that may be, you know, watching it, listening to it, anything, you know.
Hmm.
I think i think that's the biggest thing, because if I'm at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what kind of situation I'm in. If I'm not happy with it, then I'm not ever going to be satisfied, and that's not how I want to live.
Hmm. Would you say that creating music has helped your confidence? Because it seems like, as we've talked about that transition that you've gone through over the course of your life, I guess you could say, would you say music is something that's helped you feel more yourself?
Definitely, for sure. And I think it's definitely something that's helped me, you know, find my way to myself, I think, too.
Hmm.
And being able to express myself in a way that I thought I never could and kind of was uncomfortable doing by myself, I think is something that will eventually lead to, you know, discovering more about myself, and hopefully opening me up to create, you know, more and better things, you know, that, yeah, I think it definitely has at least helped me expand my confidence on, you know, generally, yeah, in general, I think so too, just because of the fact that I can create something on my own without having that environment. I
Hmm.
think I think that's the biggest thing, because you know, that's not something that I've ever been able to achieve before, and doing that without, you know, being in an environment where you have an instructor and someone literally holding your hand along the way, like I think that's an achievement that anyone can be proud of, no matter what, you know, age you are. It's something that you can accomplish and do on your own, and you know, build and grow on your own, no matter what. So
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And have you been working on anything? I gotta know. I gotta know if we can hear something soon.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things sitting, and I think, but that's one of the biggest things too, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't released anything, because actually, so I've been working on, and I recorded my first thing over 3 years ago.
Hmm.
So I've had many, I've had many recordings that I've made already, many songs that, I've written, that I've many more songs that I've have written or recorded written. But it's something now where, I'm realizing that one of the biggest things about artists is, and an individual in a sense, and where I want to go with like your question about what I want to do with my music and what I want to be able to create. And like, I want to be able to deliver a sound that's honest, but has a story to tell. And, you know, creating that sound and making sure that it's, it's cohesive to who I am.
Hmm.
That's where I kind of need to find, I need to find some sort of balance there, because if I don't, that's not sustainable.
Hmm.
And it's not something that, I can be proud of in the long term, and something that I think that I would ever, keep working towards. So I feel, I feel very strongly about a lot of different projects that I have going at the moment. But I think I'm on a very, very close track to finding the sound that I think I've been looking for.
Hmm.
And hopefully soon I'll have some sort of mixtape or something that I'll be releasing, probably, hopefully within the next year. I'd hope, if not less or sooner. So
It's
we'll
all on
see.
your own. It's all on your
But
own timeline. Whenever you feel it coming, it'll
absolutely.
come at the right time.
All right. And when it's out there, it's out there. So that's, when I put it out there, I want it to be me. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm going to do. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great, Jake. I love hearing
Oh
you
yeah.
talk about this stuff. I'm really glad you agreed to do this. But I am curious, is there any way I can hear that throat singing thing that we talked about earlier? Just like, even if it's like a split second.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. All right. I'll do it. I'll do it for you. So like that.
I asked for a second. He gave me a full
you know.
verse. Oh my God. That I love that. That's awesome. And that's stuff that you picked
Oh
up like being
yeah.
an acapella and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, doing acapella and everything, and as well as being a point bass and stuff, learning different ways to make my voice naturally go lower,
Hmm.
and finding ways, to sound like more and more robotic if I was gonna, do some sort of vocal percussion or something.
Hmm.
So I did a lot of that, like vocal percussion stuff, when I was out in college at Hofstra University. So that was my big spot for those guys. But yeah, so it's always fun. I got a lot of tricks for vocal percussion stuff.
Awesome. That's great. I'm gonna
Oh
have
yeah.
to record you doing that at some point and just put it on a loop so I can just
Anytime, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, bud. I
So
appreciate it.
yeah, thank you for having me. Absolutely.